All right, we're back. We're on Chapter 9, Slide 76. We're on Bullet 3, Hemisphere Dominance. We have both of these cerebral hemispheres will function in receiving and analyzing sensory input and sending motor impulses to the opposite side of the body. So the right controls the left controls the right. Most people exhibit hemisphere dominance for language activities such as speech, writing, and reading. The left hemisphere is dominant in 90% of the population. There are some individuals that have right hemisphere as dominance, and others show equal dominance in both hemispheres. The non-dominant hemisphere, though, specializes in non-verbal functions, and it controls emotions and intuitive thinking. Getting into something a little more detailed oriented, so to speak, are these basal nuclei. These are masses of gray matter that's located real deep within the cerebral hemispheres, and they relay motor impulses from the cerebrum and help to control motor activities, believe it or not, by producing inhibitory dopamine. You have several different aspects of the basal nuclei. You can see good examples here. You can see the depth of them in the center, so to speak, of the brain. They're toward the center, and they're very well protected. So this is a good illustration of the basal nuclei. The ventricles and the CSF. The ventricles are interconnected cavities within the cerebral hemispheres, each side, and the brainstem. You have your lateral ventricles, your third ventricles, and fourth ventricles, and then you have a cerebral aqueduct that connects the third and the fourth ventricles. The ventricles now are continuous with the central canal of the spinal cord, and they are filled with CSF, cerebral spinal fluid. Another real good illustration here for us, please pay attention to the dura mater, the pia mater, the arachnoid mater, and then while you're in these different areas, look at the subarachnoid space, see where you have your blood-filled dural space. See it, it's toward the outer aspects of the skull there, and then the deeper you get to within this encasement of bone that you have there, and a lot of soft tissue, the brain, you'll see that there's the basic functioning of our bodies is deep within the brain. So that's very important for really for our longevity when you consider where we've come from, the impact from warring tribes, etc., from very archaic type people, and you can see how protective that we've been of our brain, or that our bodies are designed as such. Choroid plexus. These are specialized capillaries from the pia mater, and they are what secrete this CSF. And the CSF, cerebral spinal fluid, arises from the lateral ventricles. It is very nutritional, and it has some cushioning protective features. Talk about the diencephalon. It is above the brainstem. It contains the hypothalamus and the thalamus. Hypothalamus is below, hypo below the thalamus. There's other portions of the diencephalon. These are the optic tracts and the other aspects of the optic pathway. It has an infundibulum and the posterior pituitary. It has mammillary bodies and the pineal gland. The thalamus functions specifically in sorting and directing sensory information. So sensory, that we can feel, see, taste, etc. And it arises from other body parts of the nervous system, and it performs the services of both messenger and editor. Hypothalamus maintains homeostasis, there's the word again, homeostasis, by regulating a wide variety of visceral activities and linking the endocrine system with the nervous system. Very important. As we have evolved, this has taken place. The hypothalamus regulates heart rate and the arterial blood pressure, body temperature, water and electrolyte balance, hunger and body weight, movements and secretions of the digestive tract, growth and reproduction, and sleep and wakefulness. Hypothalamus, so important in most aspects of our body. The limbic system, well, there's a lot to be said about the limbic system. It controls our emotional experience and our expression. It guides our behavior, and from an evolutionary perspective, it's the thing that has been one of the main features of importance here in our chance of survival. Talking about the brain stem, it's made up of the midbrain, the pons, the medulla oblongata, lies at the base of the cerebrum, connects the brain to the spinal cord. You can see this very good illustration here. You can see the mammillary body there. You can see the pituitary gland and the optic tract. It didn't show illustrations of this earlier, but there you can see that. You can see the pineal gland in the B part of this. You can see the fourth ventricle. So just another real good illustration. Notice where that is. Talking about the midbrain. This is between the diencephalon and the pons. There's bundles of myelinated nerve fibers here. These convey impulses to and from higher parts of the brain. Masses of gray matter that serve as reflex centers. Also, the midbrain centers contain centers for the auditory and visual reflexes. You have the pons that lies between the brain and the medulla oblongata. You can see here that it transmits impulses between the brain and the spinal cord. So very important. It contains the centers that regulate the rate and depth of breathing. Medulla oblongata transmits all ascending and descending impulses between the brain and spinal cord. It houses the nuclei that control visceral functions. This includes cardiac, vasomotor, respiratory center. So all of these are important. Medulla oblongata. Other features, coughing, sneezing, swallowing, vomiting. Have your reticular formation. This complex network of nerve fibers connects to these features within the gray matter, and this is the reticular formation. Decreased activity in this reticular formation, guess what? Causes us to sleep. Increased activity results in when we will wake up. So consider that with some of these people who have gone into a coma, are out cold for a while, etc. Or consider how many of these medications that cause people to sleep for great lengths of time. Consider what it affects here, the reticular formation. It filters also incoming sensory impulses. All right, let's talk about the cerebellum. It's made up of two hemispheres. It's connected by a vermis. A vermis is a worm-like feature, so to speak. Vermis is a worm. There's a thin layer of gray matter that's called the cerebellar cortex. Notice that that's not cerebral cortex, it's cerebellar cortex. And it lies outside the core of the white matter. Another real good illustration here. Notice how protected that all these areas of the brain are. See where the cerebellum is. One thing, consider that this is posterior. When you would see someone get hit at the back of the head, a lot of times it would knock them out, kind of ringing their bell. That's how I can remember that it's the cerebellum there is ringing their bell. That will make them be unconscious. This cerebellum communicates with other aspects of the central nervous system through these cerebellar peduncles. It functions to integrate sensory information about where we are in space, helps us to coordinate our skeletal activity, lets us know up from down, helps us to maintain our posture. All right, let's talk about the PNS, the peripheral nervous system. All that other was on the CNS, the brain and the spinal cord. This is on the peripheral nervous system. It consists of the cranial and spinal nerves. These come from the CNS and they travel out to the rest of the body. The PNS, peripheral nervous system, is the somatic that oversees the voluntary activities, somatic nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system that controls the involuntary activities. We have 12 pair of cranial nerves. These arise from the underside of the brain, most of which are mixed nerves. These 12 pair, keep in mind, 12 pair are designated by number and name. And there's several different rhymes that you can use to learn these. You will be expected to know them. I'm going to pronounce all of these for you, and then I'm going to tell you what the little rhyme is. The olfactory, optic, oculomotor, trochlear, trigeminal, abductions, facial, vestibular, cloacular, glossopharyngeal, vagus, accessory, and hypoglossal nerves. The little rhyme is, on old Olympus, towering tops, a Finn and German viewed some hops. There's several others out there. You can Google those, and I'm sure you'll get some that's ugly, and there's some that's pretty clean, like I've just told you about. So, all right, there you can see where these are. Notice that they have a name and that they are also designated by number. All right, there they are. You can see the nerve, the type, and the function. Some are sensory, some are motor, some are mixed. Good information right there for you. Spinal nerves. Spinal nerves now, there's 31 pair of them. And these are mixed nerves. They are grouped according to the level from which they arise. And they are numbered in sequence, beginning with 8 pair of cervical nerves up toward your cranium. They're in the cervical aspect of your vertebral column. Then there's 12 pairs of thoracic nerves in your thoracic region, 5 pair of lumbar nerves, 5 pair of sacral nerves, and 1 pair of coccygeal nerves. Each of these spinal nerves arise from 2 roots, a dorsal and a ventral root. Now, real good illustration here. And I want you to kind of look this over. Make sure that you know, like on your body, or if you can get into the lab and look at one of the models in there, kind of get the idea. Is it cervical? Is it some of those in the brachial plexus there? Is it in the thoracic? Is it down in the lumbosacral plexus? So look those over pretty carefully. Kind of know where it would be according to your rib cage being in the thoracic, knowing where your lumbar area would be, where your belt would be, etc. So you have different references that you would need to know. If you can get in again to look at the models, that will help you as well. The brown man that's there in the lab will help you quite a bit. You can see the vertebral column on him exposed to the, or on it exposed to the outside. All right, the main branches of some spinal nerves form the plexus. I'm on slide 104. You have cervical plexus. These lie on either side of the neck, and they supply the muscles and skin of the neck, and this also includes the phrenic nerves. The brachial plexus, these arise from the lower cervical and the upper thoracic nerves. These lead to the upper limbs, including the musculocutaneous, the ulnar, the medial, radial, and axillary nerves. The lumbosacral plexus arises from the lower spinal cord and leads to the lower abdomen, also to the external genitalia, the buttocks, and the legs. You can see here that you have your orbitator, your femoral, and your sciatic nerves. Autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system. Different than the somatic, it has a task of maintaining homeostasis of visceral activities without us having to think about it, without conscious effort. It includes two divisions. You have your sympathetic and your parasympathetic divisions. And these exert opposing effects on specific target organs. Parasympathetic operates under normal conditions, and the sympathetic it sympathizes with you. It operates under conditions of stress or in an emergency. In the autonomic system, autonomic motor system, motor pathways include a preganglionic fiber and a postganglionic fiber. The preganglionic fiber leads to the central nervous system, and the postganglionic innervates the effector. That's effector, not affector. Effector. Difference in the two. Sympathetic division. These are fibers in the sympathetic divisions arise from the thoracic and lumbar regions of the spinal cord, and they join their synapse in the paravertebral ganglia close to the vertebral column. Postganglionic axons lead to an effector organ. Real good illustration here. What I would recommend doing is counting up where it shows your eye there on the right. Start to count those vertebrae down, and you're going to see how many that you have. Those will be spinal nerves that you're dealing with here. So count those down, and you'll have a better aspect of what it is that you're looking at. The parasympathetic division. This arises from the brainstem and the sacral region of the spinal cord. It joins in ganglia close, proximal you could say, to the effector organ. Again, this will help you to see where some of the cranial nerves come into play relative to these spinal nerves. All right, autonomic neurotransmitters. You have preganglionic fibers and postganglionic fibers here in the parasympathetic division, and these release the acetylcholine. All right. These others that are androgenic, these will release norepinephrine, a different neurotransmitter here. Keep in mind, all of these are electrochemical messaging systems. The effects of both the sympathetic pre- and post-ganglionic fibers or divisions here are based on the effects of releasing different neurotransmitters to the effector and are generally antagonistic. All right, how do we control? I'm on slide 115. How do we control autonomic activity? It's largely controlled by reflex centers in the brain and the spinal cord. You have your limbic system, and the cerebral cortex will alter the reactions of the autonomic nervous systems through emotional influence. So your emotions now are going to start to play a great role in it. That's all that I have. Shall we